Hello and welcome back to Forum. I'm Phill Rees, and today we're discussing the recent Iranian elections and the Western media's role during them. Well, we'll now come to another question from the floor, and this time it's Amit Sukadir. I hope I pronounced that right. Amit, please, what's your question?
Hi, my question to the panel member is, what are the effects of Iran's media on all over the world?
Okay, well, certainly I think that Tim, I mean, the Iranian government certainly has financed media, Press TV here, and has tried to present an alternative voice to the Anglo-Saxon media, to the BBC, to the CNN, and the dominance that they've had in the news market. What would you say about that and its effect?
Well, I think it's a terrific move. I mean, I think it's a wonderful development. And I've always maintained, I covered the Middle East for the BBC for the best part of 20 years. And I always found that the problem in the area was that people were having to receive the alleged wisdoms of the Western media if they wanted information apart from their own state televisions. We're going back before the days of the Shah now and afterwards. And it was important that the people of the region talk to one another, but also transmit their point of view, because the impact of the West is overwhelming on the Middle East. It's been political, it's been very often malign, it's been economic. And I take your point about Israel. I've spoken widely and greatly about the bias in the Western media about the coverage of Israel. And I'm glad that stations like Press TV are actually delivering the message as seen from Iran to the outside world, answering back.
And what about during the election, though? During the election, has there been any effect?
Well, I don't know. I'm told, I wasn't here. I was in the Middle East, and I was unable to watch Press TV. But I do know there was some controversy about whether Press TV had either covered the elections at all, or whether it had covered them adequately. And that is a problem. Now, I mean, I don't think that's a particular problem for Press TV. You have to ask yourself, I'm a great fan of Al Jazeera, but let's suppose there was a civil war in Qatar. Would Al Jazeera report that the same way they report what's happening on the West Bank? If there's, I could say the same thing.
There's a problem. Is there a problem for different
just one
countries?
more point. If there was, we've just seen in this country, when we invaded Iraq, we saw what happened to the BBC when it made the point quite clearly that our Prime Minister had lied us into this war. The BBC was immediately attacked by the government. So I'm not saying by any means that we are innocent in the West. But to answer the point, it is very important that the people of that region, not just the Iranians, but the people of that region, talk back to us, and they're doing it. And it's working,
the debate.
And that debate is being widened as a result.
Paul Moorcraft, you're a visiting professor at Cardiff School of Journalism. I mean, do you tell the students that the growth in television from countries like Press TV and from the Arabic world, do you think that's a good thing and a positive thing for the world we're living in today?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Al Jazeera and quite often do punditry for them, and it's such a change. And instead of going from west to east, now news is coming from sort of the opposite direction. And, you know, we're learning a lot, certainly. And I think it's really, really important. You go anywhere in the Middle East, and Al Jazeera's on all the time. So, yes, I support it. I'm a big fan of Al Jazeera. But in terms of Press TV representing Iran, I suppose the fact that I'm standing here, or sitting here, rather, and I can say that there's been a soft coup in Tehran, and that's what's angered a lot of people. And a lot of the middle class regard the president as a superstitious peasant who's going to bring the country to war. And the fact that I can say that without being censored, I hope, means that you're being, you know, tremendous freedom. And that's important, that I can represent that viewpoint of some people, Iranians, who've told me that, and they're afraid that Ahmadinejad is an end-timer, he's looking for the conflict to fulfill the prophecies. Now, that's the problem. It's not so much that Iran wants a nuclear weapon, it's that the president might actually press the button. Yeah. That's what worries people.
Yeah. Well, without going into the details there of sort of Shiism in that sense, do you feel that Islamic civilization, and obviously you're broader from your commission representing Sunni Shias, do you think that the media is now improving in giving an alternative view by Press TV and the likes that we've heard of coming from the Middle East and other parts of the world?
It is improving, but, you know, still we are seeing some restriction. You talk about Al-Manar. Al-Manar is also,
the Hezbollah channel,
is being banned everywhere else. And, you know, I haven't seen many journalists actually coming out and screaming freedom of speech here. And then also, you know, when we talk about, you know, sort of Press TV, when I come here, I see much more diverse group of people working here than when you go to the BBC Persian. When you go to BBC Persian, you only see activists who are against the system working there, no one else, you know. And that actually is worrying. If you go down to the American channels, which are funded by this 79 million, actually, you know, it's very worrying because they're inciting. I mean, there was one channel which was operating from Britain. The guy, the journalist, picked up the gun and he said, we're talking about revolution, and this was 4 years ago, and we're not talking about going in the street, it's guns, you know, guns, and we're going to attack 7 embassies, including British embassy. We send that recording to Metropolitan Police. Up to this day, they've done nothing about it whatsoever. Now, this is a standard which we all should condemn.
Well, I agree.
Just before coming to you, Professor, just wonder if a gentleman here in the audience wants to contribute to this point.
The activation of BBC Persian Service satellite channel in the last few months before the election is evident to a pre-planned agenda for the election. BBC Persian Service has a track record of illegal interference and illegal public provocation inside Iran, such as the 28th of Mordad coup, where BBC Persian Service and Voice of America are set to scatter lies, rumors, and orchestrate the written scenario of a color revolution, directed by some Western countries who think everybody should think like them and be controlled by them, which is an imperialistic view. And
I think we've got the gist there, sir. Look, I think the gist of that we've got, because you really can see in the BBC Farsi service a hidden hand there. I mean, what do you think about that key question that actually was set up, and of course it was set up in, I think, January this year, financed by the British Foreign Office. Do you see a malign hidden hand at work?
Well, a couple of things, really. First, I'll respond to this, but there are a couple of other things I'd like to add. I do think that the BBC Farsi has played a very negative role, and the same is true with the VOA, and there have been instances where violence has been incited. But going back to the English BBC, which is something we can all more easily talk about, you know, when we come, for example, to Iran, on Press TV or on Al Jazeera, and I have my own criticisms of Press TV, but in any case, you do have a debate where some people say that Ahmadinejad is this, some say he's that, some say something quite different. But when you go and you listen to the BBC, it's supposedly open, it's free. But what is the debate? Someone says Iran is evil, we should, let's say, bomb it, let's say. Someone says it's evil, we should increase sanctions. And the third guy said they're evil, but we should talk to him. The debate is basically one where there are certain assumptions that are all the same. But there's no alternative voice. I've very rarely heard on a debate where someone was actually supportive of Iran, let's say, the country, the revolution, and so on. It's usually different voices that are very, very critical. Whereas, you know, on Al Jazeera, on Press TV, you do see more alternative voices. And I think it should be even more than that, because sometimes I think that they don't go far enough. But in that sense, I do not think that the BBC and especially American channels allow alternative voices. And another problem about freedom of information is that you can't get Al Jazeera anywhere in the United States or Press TV at any hotel. I've never seen Al Jazeera or Press TV in any part of the United States.